Hi, and today we're going to be learning about getting your files print ready in InDesign. So the first thing I always recommend designers do when you're ready, when your design is finished, you're ready to send it over to the printer, such as this postcard design I've done, is to just go ahead and clean up the file. All the stuff here on the side that you're no longer needing, go ahead and delete that. Because whenever we're checking to make sure our images are linked, we have the right colors, we don't want any of this stuff that we don't care about to influence our checking process. Also, it's just a very good best practice as a designer to go ahead and make a nice clean file. So if this was ever handed off to another designer, they have a really nice place to start working. All right, so the first thing we're going to check is our colors. So because this is for print, we want to make sure all of our colors are either Pantone or CMYK. I'll do another video on what the difference between those and RGB is, but RGB is not a print color, it's for the web. So as you can see here, one of my swatches is RGB. So there's a really simple way to switch that over in InDesign. You're just going to double click it, and then you can switch it to CMYK. All right, so we can see there that there's CMYK, so the colors are good for print. The next thing we want to check is that all of our images are linked and also they are in print color format. So I don't have any broken links. If I did, there'd be like a little warning here, so that's great. And then I also want to make sure that all of my images are CMYK. And when you click on an image here in the links panel, you can read down, and in this information, you can see the color space here is CMYK, so that's good to go. Sometimes, such as this is a PDF, it doesn't specify what the color is in these notes. And so what I'll try to do best practice is I'll go ahead and I'll put CMYK on the end of my file so I can know that I did save it as CMYK in the past. So that's a good practice for something. Otherwise, you would need to just go ahead, find this file in your folder and drop it into Photoshop and double check that it is CMYK. And then relink. The next one here, this has color space on it, CMYK, and I want you to note that this is a Photoshop file. So you can link larger files, such as a Photoshop file within InDesign. That's fine. However, when you do that, that is a larger file size. And so if this is just a tiny little postcard, 5.5 by 4.25, but if this was, say, a multi-page document and I had several Photoshop files linked within here, or it was a much larger piece, it's going to create a really, really large file, and that could create a problem. Then I would not recommend that you have things such as Photoshop files linked, but for this scenario, that's not a problem because we're working with a small document. And then the last one here, it's a JPEG image. Again, this does not have color specs listed in here, but I've gone ahead and in the past gone ahead and saved that it was CMYK on the end, so I'm confident that that's what that is. But if you hadn't done something like that, you could always check, drop it in Photoshop, and make sure that that's right. All right, and so the next thing that we're going to do is something that I would highly recommend is to outline any unique fonts. So here, this title, the Christmas With, this is a nice scripty font, and this isn't something that's crucial to getting print ready, but in my experience, there's been times where I did not outline kind of a unique, funky font like that, and when it got sent to the printer, it just kind of defaulted to something more standard. So ever since I had that one incident a couple years ago, if I have anything that's kind of out of the ordinary, I always like to outline it. So the way you're going to do that is you want to make sure that both of the blocks there, Christmas and With, are selected. You can do it one at a time or you can do them together. And then you're going to go up here to type, because that's what we're doing. We're working within our type, and just as simple as create outlines. So now you can see all the little tiny pixels in there, so you know that you've got those outlined. I'm going to check the back of my card and see if I used that font anywhere here. No, I didn't. So if you really, really want to be careful, naturally, you could just go ahead and outline all of the text. I don't tend to do that when it's just a normal serif or sans serif font. I typically just outline something that's a little more unique. All right, and then the last thing we're going to do with this file is, because it's going to the printer, all printers are going to want to have bleed on there. And that's as simple as going to File and then Document Setup. Here you can see is where we have a bleed setting, and right now it's on 0. You can always check with your printer as to what size of bleed they want, but the standard is 0.125 inches. And InDesign have it so where it's locked, so I don't have to type this in 4 times. I can just type it once, and then it goes ahead and it matches it all through there, which is awesome. I've had some printers or some sort of documents that needed a different size than 0.125, but usually the printer will reach out to you and let you know if the bleed setting that you've selected isn't what they want. All right, so now that there's bleed on there, that's how come we have this nice red outline. So you just want to make sure that all of your images go up to that. All right, so I've got this gradient color on here, and that's all the way out. This is a little bit past. I tend to kind of just like to tighten things up all the way, even if it goes, obviously if it goes past the bleed, that's fine. But again, I like to make it nice and tidy. If another designer was to ever get this file, it's just everything looks really good. All right, and this looks like this gradient right here needs to be moved over all the way to the edge. All right, got it over here a little bit too. And pull this guy out. It's nice, it kind of snaps to the edge for you, so it's pretty simple to do. You just want to make sure you grabbed everything. All right, that looks good. Let's go to the back here. All right, so this is already going to pass the bleed marks, which is fine. I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it up a little bit. Great, so now we've got all of our bleeds covered. So that's the last thing you need to do as far as getting your actual file ready for it. Naturally, you want to Command S, save it. All right, and so now you're going to go to File, and then you're just going to do Export. And what I'd recommend is on the end of this, say that this is your print file, not to be confused with your regular file, your regular PDF if you have one that does not have bleeds on it. Sometimes I'll put bleed on the end, sometimes I'll put print. All right. And then normally it should just say print, high quality print. That means that you haven't adjusted any of the normal settings. And so when you go down for a print ready file, you want to go to this third one, marks and bleed. The main thing that your printer is going to want to see is crop marks and use document bleed settings, because we already set that up in the document. They definitely want those too. Sometimes what I'll just do is I'll go ahead and I'll just click all printer marks, because you do get your color bar and everything with that, as well as use document bleed settings. For this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and do that, but you definitely want to always have crop marks and use document bleed settings. All right, so now we've exported. All right, and the last thing we want to do is look at our exported PDF that has these bleed marks. So I'm going to open it here. I can tell because it says print on the end. And I always recommend that people view this at 100%, and you can tell that here on the side. At 100%, that way you can see, I'm sure you've previously checked that you've had really good high image quality, but this will also, unless you are going to have a test print at home where you can check it, this is a really good way to kind of check it before you send it over to your printer. All right, everything looks really good. As you can see, you've got your crop and bleed marks. The images all went to the edges. So that looks fantastic. Sometimes printers will also print off a sample for you, and that's a really good way to check as well. Just kind of depends if you are farther away from the printer and you're not able to actually have that hard copy. You can check it really great in this digital way. Well, that's everything with exporting your InDesign file to be print ready. Thanks.